Hey you who mess with JS, Aegis here again, and let's rock some JavaScript together. Welcome back to the course on learning and getting started with ECMAScript 6. And in this video we're gonna do classes, and the previous one we did let keyword, so if you didn't watch it, please go ahead and watch it and come back to this one. It's good to keep things in order. So let's go ahead, open our Sublime Text environment that we set up in the first video. So if you didn't as well, go ahead, watch the first video and configure this properly. You don't need to use Sublime, you can use whatever you want, but we need something that will compile our ECMAScript 6 into ECMAScript 5. Okay, so basically classes, I'll be brief and you can read about them if you're not familiar with object-oriented concepts and abstractions, but class can pretty much represent anything, any abstraction or anything in real life. Let's go ahead and create one, and let's create a person. So to kind of start with the techie stuff instantly, so when you create a class, you use a class keyword and followed by the name of the class. Always try to name your classes with something that really represents certain thing in your code or certain thing that you want to describe. This class person is pretty much as a person itself. So if you go ahead and create a constructor, and each class has a constructor. Constructor is something which is initiated or ran when we create a new instance of the class. We're gonna show that later in a few minutes. So here, so every class has its constructor and it has own body, and this is its body. In the constructor we define properties, and in the body itself we define methods. So here we will give this class person a name and an age, and here we can say this dot name is equal to name, and we can also say this dot age is equal to age. So right now our class has two properties, name and age. So our person has name and it has age. And in the side of the class body, we define our methods, or if you're a kind of a C guy, it's called functions. I use both. And so what we can do here is we can say something like check person. No, actually, let's call it check identity. We open we open the braces for the function where the arguments are, and we can just pass in let's actually not pass anything. Let's use the values from the constructor itself. So if this dot name, okay, if this dot name is equal to JSB console log Alex, you rock, man. Else console log, well, you still rock. You didn't expect this, didn't you? Anyway, so now we have our method on our person class. So if we go ahead now to outside of the class itself, or outside of the class definition, the way we create an entity or an instance of a class is very similar to many things you did before. If you're a JavaScript developer, we're gonna say let of create person is equal to new person. We're gonna pass it obviously two parameters. First one is the name, let's say GSB, and another one is age, and we're gonna just close that. So now in this object we have an instance of a class, and we can call our methods on it. In this case only one. So if we go ahead and say create person dot check identity, and we just save that, and let's go ahead and run that, we're gonna get the message Alex, you rock, man. And if we change this here, we're gonna get, well, you still rock, sir. So yeah, I definitely rock, and thank you very much. So awesome. So we can define class in two different ways, pretty much as we could with using function. We can declare them as class declarations or class expressions. And this is a class expression, and class declaration would look something like this. So var or let person is equal to class. I believe so. It's this way. I'm not sure. I think it is. Let's see if it works. And actually, let's not delete everything. Let's just kind of zoom it out a little bit so we don't yeah. So this is the regular way, and we can say let person is equal to class, and let's comment this out so we don't get over or redeclaration or redefinition of the class itself. And here we can just go ahead and smack this guy from the top, and if we save that, we're gonna get it compiled here, hopefully, right? And if we go down there now, and if we say var, no, let's not use var, let's say let new person is equal to new person, and again just pass a JSB and 5, and if you say that and you try to use our method on, which was called check identity, and if we save that and if we run it, yes, it works. So one way to declare the classes. The other way, it was pretty much the same with the functions, pretty much same. You can define a function like this, which is function definition, var x is equal to function, and the function name is this now, or you could always do it like function of x and stuff like that. If you want to know more how these functions are executed and how the differences between one and two, the first and second are, you can do it yourself. I don't have time in this video to explain these things, so yes. So let's uncomment this because we need this. We're gonna follow up this pattern here, and yeah. So before we continue, what we said that there are two ways to declare classes, pretty much as the way we did it with functions, class declarations, and class expressions. We invoke our class via keyword new. So we create an instance of a class by saying let name of the variable is equal to new and class name. Okay, so that's what we learned so far. And the last thing we're gonna mention in this video, but it's certainly not the last thing that relates to classes, and I'm not gonna really cover all the possible use cases and complex things because it would take time, but maybe in the next video. Let's create a class that can inherit from this class. So let's create a child class of a class person. The way we do that is similar. We say class, and we say, I don't know, let's name the class child. Name is of course optional, and we use keyword extends, and we pick a person. So what it does says, okay, I want to create a new class and extend this class. So child class in this case called child will inherit properties and methods from the top parent class. So the way we do it is similar. We say constructor const constructor. Come on, bro. Constructor. Jesus Christ. And here in the constructor itself, we can pass values from our parent class. So we can say name, age, and we can pass as many other values as we want. Let's say school and gender. So if we want to access values from our person class, we need to say super. Super is a function that will evaluate our variables from the child constructor and tell this this new class, the name and age are actually variables which belong to our parent class and not this. And other variables, I mean, we can just say this dot school is equal to school, and this dot gender is equal to gender. So this is what differentiate this. So by using this keyword, we're saying, okay, this variable in my scope is equal to what's been passed in the constructor itself, and that's pretty much awesome. So now, for example, if we want to use our identity class here, we can, and I should have probably written it a little bit better, but it doesn't matter. So if I want to, for example, use class from the top, I can just say super.check identity, and I can just call it either like this, but let's see, and we will need to pass something in the constructor. So this is my method now that I use from our person class, our parent class. So if we go ahead now and say let's create child is equal to new child, and here we can just pass in, we don't need to pass everything, we can just pass a name, which would be JSB bro, and it can be 22, and we can say that, and then we can say again create child dot check identity, and we can just call that function. So if we go ahead and run this, we didn't get really anything now. Let's see why. So if we go and take a look at the top, so super is here, and oh, actually, I'm sorry. So we need to create a method here actually on our own. So let's call a method called call top parent method, and inside of here, let's just call this function. Let's try it like this. So if you replace this and go run it again, yes, we're gonna get, well, you still rock. So what's happening here is that we are creating our own method, and inside of there we're saying, okay, call the super class, which is our parent class, and from that class please call the method check identity. So the reason why we are even talking about this now is just I want to show you inheritance and how you can extend classes with different subclasses, so you can keep your code a little bit more organized and keep it kind of and I'm not gonna say in functional way, but you know, this is still way of divide and destructure code in a little bit better and efficient and cleaner way, so you can kind of reuse these classes a little bit better and inherit certain information in case you really need it in any of the subclasses or child classes. So basically this is essential things about JavaScript classes. There's really not too much more to talk about. I mean, you just need to know the inheritance, you need to know that class is declared with a keyword class, that each class has a constructor, that in the constructor itself we define the properties, in the body of the class we define methods or call it functions, that in order to inherit or extend the root parent class we use extends, and the name of the class that we want to extend. In the constructor we pass as many arguments as we want. If we want to state that some of the arguments are from the parent class, we just say super name and age. The rest we can just with using this keyword we can bind them to our scope of the class. And in order to call a method from the parent class, we use super dot name of the parent class inside of the method inside of this subclass. Constructors are called or executed or fired up as soon as new keyword is presented with the followed by a class name. So as soon as we call something like this, basically we are executing our constructor and building up stuff. As well, you can hard code things in the constructor as well. So instead of passing stuff here. You don't really need to pass any arguments. So if you don't want any arguments, you can just let's just clean up this up a little bit. So if you don't want to pass anything to the constructor, you maybe want just to execute certain amount of code or anything like that, you can just simply hard code these values. So like if we do something like this here, and if we just put age here, and if we, instead of this if loop, just for the sake of this presentation, go ahead and say console log this dot name and this dot age, and if we go set and say let and no problem or new person is equal to a new person, obviously, and we ain't gonna pass anything here because, as you can see in the top in the constructor, we're not passing any arguments. And if we say np dot check identity here and just try to execute this function, we're gonna get JS broadcast and age of 22. So basically you can hard code this stuff, and of course classes are really endless. You can use them in many use cases. Unfortunately, we don't have so much time to spend on explaining everything, but internet has enough information. Okay, before we end of this video, I really need to mention some very important things, and they're related to hoisting. So when you create a class, when you declare a class, classes are not hoisted to the top of the file. That means this: you cannot execute or invoke a class before you declare it, just as you can with this. For example, if we say something like fn, let's do the example in the old-fashioned ECMAScript file way. So if we say fn, and then after here we say a function fn, and we say console log. Wow, bro, it does work. It does work. Okay, so if we do something like this right now in ECMAScript 5 and run this, it will obviously work. Wow, bro, it does work. Yeah, that's strange language, and it does because when a JavaScript compiler runs this code, it first looks for the declarations and then puts them on the top of the file, and that's awesome. Actually, that's quite cool in some ways. And you cannot do this with class. So if we try to do something like, new person, and then you do something like class person and constructor, and just we're gonna leave it empty, and we go here and say console. Well, we need a method like console method, bro, and if we just go ahead and add a console log that man, and if we just copy that and yeah, I mean, just go here and say left of x is new person x dot blah, and we try to execute this, we're gonna get undefined is not a function, obviously, and the reason why is because we're trying to invoke a class which is not at this point of time yet created. So if we try to kind of put this on the top, save and run it, we're gonna get butman. So yeah, so obviously this is very important aspect to keep in mind, because it obviously does not work like that. Also, classes are returning functions, so if they're the type of the function, to be more precise. So if we go ahead here and say console log type of person and save that and run it, we're gonna get a function response. So a class is a type of function. So classes are actually functions. They're just sugar on the top of some things, and they help us, write a little bit better and a little bit more prettier and more synthetically better code. But other than that, I don't honestly believe there's any particular performance reasons to pick them. It's just, that they look better, they feel better, and it's just, you can write more concise and better code. So yeah, I mean, I'm trying to really think about other use cases, and that is pretty much it. We have talked about a lot of things, and if there's anything more that you're unclear about and that you want me to kind of simplify or say more, I mean, feel free to comment on that. I'll be very happy to expand this video, and classes are quite and can be quite interesting and fun. And if you have any questions or anything, just ask. Until then, I hope you will do some JS, avoid the mess, and yeah, just stick with JS, and I will see you in the next video where I'm not sure what we're gonna do, but it could be maybe pointer functions or something like that. But just stay tuned, please subscribe, and stay sharp with the JS.